Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Snap Podcast, bringing you all the views and opinions of the NFL from a table surrounded by very British people. I'm Jim and I'm back from the Emerald Isle to bring some civility and grace to the podcast after last week's outrageous claims that Robert Woods was a top 15 wideout. For that very reason, Griff isn't with us today after being banished to read a Dummy's Guide to the NFL, but joining me is Gilo, Johnny Thrash and Fourth of Inches.
Hello.
Hello. We're getting closer to the start of the actual season and return of proper football, and we'll have our review of the NFC in the second half of the programme, but we'll kick things off with all things newsworthy, which thankfully don't include anything to do with a certain quarterback wearing number 4 for Cleveland. We are going to start with the quarterback position though and turn our attention to San Francisco, where the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo agreed a contract restructure that sees Jimmy G reduce his contract guaranteed salary down to $6.5 million. Does include a load of incentives for playing time. He also gets a no trade clause along with a don't franchise tag me clause. So it's a rare occasion where it feels like everyone's winning here. 49ers get a good backup. Garoppolo gets a say over his future along with a contract which makes him more attractive to trades should the opportunity arise. Thoughts, Gary?
Well, I'm delighted with this, I have to admit. It's almost like we've had our cake and eaten it, really, because I think he can't be confident that he's going to get taken. That's the only reason you would sign this deal. He obviously thinks he's got more chance of playing for the Niners than getting traded somewhere else right now,
based on his previous contract, where he's getting like 24 million or something.
So he would rather go, right, I'll take 6.5, and if I play, if trade doesn't quite work out, gets injured, you know I can do you a job, then you can pay me some more, and I've got another opportunity to show other teams what I can do when there's, some issues out there at quarterback. But then they can go into negotiations with a different contract situation. I think it's brilliant. And Shanahan then gives him a complete free rein to go, right, Trey, you have got 7 games. You don't need to worry about getting dropped. Jimmy's here. Don't worry. Just don't worry. Just go out and play. Yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen this season. Go and play, and Jimmy's there if you need him. Jimmy's going to be there on the practice field. I think it's absolute brilliant team management.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about this whole deal is that Griff was right that he's staying in San Francisco. But I can't. Apart from that, I can't see any downsides to it.
It's win-win for everyone because there's no good landing spot for Jimmy if he didn't stay. There's no team that kind of
it's actually really mature.
Yeah.
It's something you wouldn't expect to see in football.
The rumour was that if he had been cut, he was going to go to the Seahawks. And I think John Lynch wanted to do everything possible to make sure he wasn't going to go to the Seahawks. I mean, I don't know why he would, because that's a roster where he will end up getting injured again.
Well, because if they're going to pay him, that's why. Short career.
Yeah.
What do you do? How many quarterbacks do you see fall out of the league?
Even if he got cut, the 49ers will be on the hook for that $24 million, not the Seahawks. So, it's still...
I'm no financial advisor, but I've heard getting paid to do work is better than not being paid to do work. So I imagine he would go to Seattle, where you get paid still. So, I mean, fine, great.
The Niners could cut him for almost nothing this year as well.
Yeah.
The cap hit was almost nothing. Yeah, so the Niners wouldn't have been on
9
the hook
million.
for it.
True.
9 million.
Corrected.
Is cap hit now. So it was very little
anyway.
It was
almost nothing.
It was
like
nothing
2 or 3
little,
million. We could have literally
if
walked
they
away.
cut him before today.
Yeah, we could have literally have walked away from the deal. So actually, it makes total sense. We haven't had to spend that much, but if he plays a lot, we'll pay him.
Yeah, I don't think that's
well, even if he doesn't, he's on $500,000 every time he's rostered. So every time he puts his shirt on, he's $500,000 richer, which means what is 9 million just for putting his shirt on by the end of the year, including his 9 million guaranteed. He's still. I mean, I'm not feeling any sadness towards Jimmy. He's not going to be playing. He's still being fabulously well paid to just stand on the bench.
And our combined cost for our 2 quarterbacks now is a bargain.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably one of the better quarterback rooms in the league.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance is still kind of an experiment at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk, isn't there? And, it might end up that he gets injured. It might end up that he gets absolutely destroyed in the first game, and we have to, put Jimmy in just as a relief.
Well, how many times have we seen different quarterbacks go into the playoffs and started at the start of the season? You saw it with our friend Colin Kaepernick. Anyone got a Kaepernick buzzer for me? And Alex Smith. We saw it with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Thomas Brady.
Tom Brady, yeah. So we've seen it a number of times.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to play an alarm. Is you saying the words Tom Brady positively?
I did not. We'll come on to that. Yeah. I think we get time to correct that statement.
Yeah, right. Well, sticking with quarterbacks, we've seen Pete Carroll announce that Geno Smith is the more polished turd in Seattle, and he'll start for the Seahawks in their season opener against Russell Wilson-led Broncos. Baker Mayfield has won the competition against Sam Darnold, for much it was, and will start for the Panthers against the Browns, but we're yet to see who's going to start for the Steelers. So is it Trubisky, or do they go all in on Kenny Pickett?
I think they'll be going for Trubisky.
I think someone's shaking their head from the other side of the room. That's obviously going big on Pickett. I can see the benefit of both ways, really. I'm trying not to sit on the fence here.
I think it'd be better to start with...
John's finally admitted it.
Yeah, I think it'd be better to start with Trubisky, because if he is doing badly, it's easier to bring a rookie in. If it goes the other way, you're potentially ruining that rookie's career.
Yeah, I think Trubisky starts. Pickett may well have the better career with the Steelers going forward, but yeah, I think Trubisky should start. He's the most ready. I know Pickett is more NFL ready than most of the other rookies, probably from the last 2 years, apart from
Mac
Jones. So, yeah, I think Trubisky, though, I've been always a big fan of Trubisky. I think he's a perfectly average NFL quarterback, you know. And
that's what the Steelers need.
And that's for Trubisky, that's a big fan.
I think
you don't get much better.
Yeah. Well, it's right up there with his pros to Tom Brady.
Especially
his mum doesn't think much more of him.
Especially at the moment where the biggest question about the Steelers is the offensive line.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a rookie coming in knowing that he's probably going to have a second and a half in the pocket, because that's all Ben had for the last 2 years.
And Ben had like 15 odd years experience.
Exactly. And as well, you know.
And was about 400 pounds. So you ain't going to bring him down if you try it. That gives him an extra second.
Although the one thing that might hurt Trubisky and might make him get hurt is he does take too long to get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
So if that O-line doesn't protect him, you're going to see Pickett.
He can. He has got that ability to scramble, though, hasn't he?
Yeah. It is what it is. It is what it is. You know.
It is what it is.
They're both unknown prospects, really. The Trubisky is the less known unknown. The more known unknown, even. Sorry.
Too
now,
many fucking leadership days.
now the fence has been ridden.
I'm always fine with known knowns. It's the unknown unknowns I can't deal
Well,
with.
but Pickett is the unknown unknown, whereas Trubisky is a known unknown.
Known unknowns and known knowns.
Yeah. I mean, what is known is that I think they got the Bengals first game of the season.
I feel like I'm listening to 2 Unlimited.
I know. That's a... I always love the niche references. Right, I'm going to move on. NFL teams, NFL films have been drip feeding us the top 100 over the last couple of weeks, and the final edition was released earlier this week with the top 10 named as, and bear in mind this is what players have voted for. Number 1, Tom Brady. 2, Aaron Donald, Aaron Rodgers, Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, TJ Watt, Devontae Adams, Patrick Mahomes at 8, Jalen Ramsey, and Travis Kelce rounds off the top 10. I'm not going to reel off the top 100, but needless to say, Nick Bosa was 23 and Max Crosby was 59.
Let's say his name properly.
All-Pro Max Crosby.
There is also no sign of Robert Woods.
No, that's interesting.
All this proves is that you shouldn't ask the opinion of men whose job it is to be hit in the head, their opinion on stuff.
Talking about the
Because,
general public voting for the Pro Bowl.
well, that as well. I mean,
Just shows the power that Tom Brady and his brand has over the league and every owner and every fanboy player.
I agree.
there were no standout players last year.
Burrow.
Which?
Joe Burrow.
Cooper Kupp,
Jamar Chase?
But
He's
there
still
were-
new in his career, but
Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, Jonathan Taylor, first big year.
Matt Stafford?
Joe Burrow, first big year. Jamar Chase, first big year. You're not going to put them at the top of the NFL 100. Matt Stafford,
Aaron
had a-
Rodgers was the
had-
MVP.
Aaron Donald
Yeah.
wasn't bad either.
Aaron Donald is the player. Aaron Donald is the... But because there were no standout offensive players, which is how they want to sell the league, that is why you end up
I think
with
the
this
players
chasm.
care about selling the league.
No, but that's why you end up with Aaron Rodgers as MVP and Tom Brady
But the players
as the
voted for
NFL.
this.
And yeah,
I mean,
the last three MVPs.
Brady did have his best statistical season. That's like the best.
44 years.
Oh, yeah.
He had an extra game.
Yeah,
He's 44 years.
He also
old.
had wide receivers for the first time in like 15 years. He's had Randy Moss, Wes Welker, and then for 2
Just
years
a little nudge to my conscience. What about Josh Allen?
Yeah, Josh Allen. Well, I said...
He's not
But
even
he
not
was
even the top 10.
Who's missing out of the top 10?
Josh Allen is the one missing for me. But he also, like, for the first 6 weeks, the person who was telling, was there going, oh, he's regressing to the mean, he's not around the table, obviously, right now. But yeah, Griff was saying that Josh Allen was regressing to the mean. And no one disagreed with him. Yeah, everyone agreed. Was like, oh, do you know what? He's not been great. Do you remember him getting absolutely destroyed by the other Josh Allen, where he couldn't move the ball 6 yards? Like, that's why you end up with Tom Brady as number one and Aaron Rodgers MVP, because everyone else sort of had a up and down year.
They wanted it to be contentious, so people would talk about it and promote it.
Amazing that.
Yeah,
to put into perspective, the other quarterbacks you mentioned, Joe Burrow was 21st, so not even on the top 20. Matt Stafford was 27.
That is criminal for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought Matt Stafford was brilliant. And yes, he had wide receivers.
Cooper Kupp passed the ball to himself, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, because Matt Stafford if you're going based on last year, Matt Stafford was ace in the playoffs. On the last few weeks of the season, he was pretty average.
He was a bit beaten up though, as well.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because
he didn't even have the strength to pull up a crippled woman later in the season.
Well, it's because he looked at her and knew she was a racist.
He did also throw the most interceptions.
Boom.
No, I'm not having that.
But so where's fucking Jameis in this?
No, but
Yeah.
The thing is, Brady is no longer the best player in the NFL.
No, he isn't.
I completely agree.
And the little NFL fanboys that think they can just go sniffing his butt to go and fucking win a Super Bowl should just shut up.
One big miss for me in the top 10 is Trent Williams, the offensive tackle. Best defensive lineman in the league.
Get a chunky big man in there.
Yeah, exactly. Offensive line always gets completely ignored in this.
The last thing you said to me was about licking Bombhole and then said, get a chunky big man in there. I'm not fist bumping you.
All right, so a few quick, very, very quick quiz questions. Which team had the most players in the top 100?
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Nope.
The Bucks.
Rams.
No.
The Cowboys.
No.
The Raiders.
No.
The Packers.
Chargers,
yeah.
I knew that.
Chargers got 8.
Wow.
Second team with the 49ers was 7, and the Rams got 6.
But these men are getting hit in the head. They don't remember these things.
Right.
John Jeremy's getting angry, really angry.
Yeah, okay. Changing tact a little bit, or quite a lot, actually. In sad news, great Len Dawson died last week, age 87. Dawson was a Hall of Fame quarterback.
We're not laughing about Len Dawson, which is really sad news. And an iconic photo. It was just
We had to change tact.
That wasn't changing tack. That was like
There was no segue into that. Right.
the segue just crashed.
Yeah. Dawson, a Hall of Fame quarterback who led the Chiefs to their first Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 4 in 1970. 23-7 win over the Vikings.
I mean, to be fair, he was playing Fran Tarkenton in the Super Bowl, which meant he was guaranteed to win.
Absolutely. He was famously linked to a gambling scandal just days before that. It was actually a mistaken identity where Donald Dawson was actually in the wrong. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1987. He still holds the franchise record for most passing yards, 28,000, and most passing TDs, 237 for the Chiefs. Really nice touch for the Chiefs during a preseason game. Nice. If you've not seen it, check this out on YouTube. The offense adopted what's called a choir huddle, which Dawson made famous, and held it in his honour until a delay of game penalty was called. And it was actually called against number 16 instead of number 15, which is Mahomes' number, 16 being Dawson's number. A load of the starters were meant to actually sit out that game, but they all came back in honour of Dawson, which I think is a really nice touch. Showing a bit of respect to your elders. Don't often say respect in NFL players much at the moment.
And a wonderful piano player.
In other sad news, Brian Robinson got the Commanders' rookie running back was shot during an attempted robbery. He was admitted to hospital, has had surgery, has released from hospital, and he was seen in the Commanders' facility earlier today. So hopefully he's going to make a full recovery, and we'll get to see him on the playing field soon, and no doubt Griff will be picking him number 1 with his fantasy draft.
Here's to you, Brian Robinson.
Absolutely.
Fucking hell.
Oh, I should have put the sad bits up the front.
No one's even drinking.
No, that's the saddest thing. More depressing news. Bills cut rookie punter Matt Araiza, who was accused of being involved in a gang rape of a 17-year-old girl with 2 teammates at San Diego State. It's good that the Bills acted relatively quickly and cut him. What?
They knew about this already.
Well, that's the thing. How much did they know about it pre-draft, and how much?
What did they need to know?
Well,
yeah,
you don't ask them that.
They. This is the thing, isn't it? They conducted an investigation by asking Matt, what happened? And he went, not much. And they went, yeah, fine, sweet.
I mean, during that alleged investigation, they didn't even speak to the victim's attorney.
Yeah.
And it was only when after the attorney was released a graphical journal account of the incident the Bills actually acted. So yeah,
they released the transcript of a phone call where this guy was telling the victim to go and get tested for STDs. It's horrific.
It's terrible.
The guy's career is done
before it even started. Right.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, punt god really means cunt.
But that's it. Like as well. Like McDermott was being interviewed last week, supposedly after the investigation. It was like, oh man, punt god. The guys love him. He's getting on really well. He's gonna be a star. And you're like, this is supposed to be after your investigation. You're still calling him punt god and how he's well expected.
This is the problem, isn't it? With some of this stuff, Griff, he loves McDermott. He's a man's man. He leads his team properly. Bit of a Dan Quinn guy. He love it. But they just don't deal with this stuff properly.
Well, the only reason they've dealt with this one is because he's a punter and he's cheap.
Well, and he's not a star. He's not even a starter or star punter.
Yeah,
like it's all. I think it's always the same, isn't it? If you're not a star player and you commit an offence or whatever, you've got
no value, have you?
No, exactly.
You're not bringing any money.
It's totally
you're
expendable.
made an example of, and you'll get rid of.
Same happens with college prospects, doesn't
absolutely.
it? If you're a problem come out of college, there's a story against you. You just drop and you drop and you drop and you drop and you drop.
And the sad thing is, if you're a starter or a player of worth, and you can do the most horrible things, we're not mentioning him, you get a massive, great big guaranteed contract.
But obviously, the question is like, how much did they know? But also, like, I remember on the draft night, Baltimore took a punter before him, and everyone was going, "They're fucking insane." And you're like, maybe they're saying that some teams knew about this and knew in more detail, and just stayed away.
I just didn't know Teflon were the new sponsors of the NFL.
Well, Buffalo did conduct their investigation and found out he could punt the ball 80 yards.
Yeah, it's just it's. I'm hoping next week we can have a show about talking about sexual assault.
Good luck. Pre-season's now over. We're about 9 days away from when the proper stuff starts. Everyone should now be doing their fancy drafts. Why you do it any earlier, I don't know.
Because I'm going to fucking win, that's why.
Well, your league is crazy. So how much weight should we put on the preseason game? So I was looking at Twitter yesterday, and there are a lot of fans and a lot of teams celebrating the fact they're undefeated during preseason. I know certain other podcasts make a big thing of the Ravens being undefeated in preseason for God knows how long. I mean, it's great. It starts probably sort of little game time. The playbook is not going to be all revealed during meaningless games. So, I mean, how much should we put onto pre-season records?
I'd like to take you back to the mid-2000s.
Go for it.
The Detroit Lions were unbeaten in pre-season.
Didn't they go 0-16?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to know who else? Do you want to know who was unbeaten in pre-season this year?
Please.
The Jets, the Ravens, the Steelers,
all good teams.
The Texans,
not the Niners.
The Raiders.
They lost to the Texans.
Yeah, that's it. And the Bears.
But to be fair, I couldn't tell.
None of them are teams we're expecting to pick outside of the top 10.
Because there's not any difference between their starters and their backups.
And that's a good
So
shout.
they're just playing everybody. Whereas the good teams,
Because they don't know who
they don't know who their starters are. Whereas all the good teams are like, oh, Aaron Rodgers hasn't played. Who cares what the Packers have done? Doesn't mean shit.
I could name you 3 players on the Texans roster. There's 50 other men who are completely interchangeable.
I could probably name you 4, but one of them got cut today. Speaking of which, end of the preseason means, and today, Tuesday, the 30th of August, is the deadline for players getting cut, for teams reducing their roster down to 53 players. So around about, something stupid like 1,000 NFL players are going to find themselves out of a job, or have already found themselves out of a job. So we've obviously talked about the Bills cutting a razor, but what are the other notable cuts that you guys have seen?
Philip Lindsay, I was surprised by, because Philip Lindsay has been okay. He's came in undrafted, so the Broncos had a 1,000-yard season.
He was great at the Broncos that first season.
Yeah.
And the second one, it was decent.
And with them the Colts, Jonathan Taylor had his breakout season, but before then they did always kind of have a bit of committee, and I thought he'd be a decent backup there. I was surprised by that.
And Marlon Mack
going, that was a bit of a surprise.
I mean, quite frankly,
Michel.
we've mentioned fantasy. If you're in fantasy, it looks more and more like Damian Pierce might be a bit of a flyer.
Oh, Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson's gone from the Bills. Yep.
OJ Howard, we've talked about it a lot off air.
But he's gone as well.
He has gone, in case we forgot.
Alex Leatherwood from the Raiders, that 21.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Raiders, because that was their 17th pick in the 2021 draft. They've also traded away the second-round pick from 2019. Trevor Mills has been traded to the Cardinals. It just feels like they're absolute. But Daniels and has gone in there and is like, this roster's shit. We want to get rid of any mention of John Gruden, who was famously that he was making the first and second round picks ahead of Mike Mayock. They're just clearing house.
Same in Jacksonville. Their 2020 draft might go down as one of the worst of all time, because they picked 16 players. 2 of them are looking remotely like starters for week 1.
Is this not just where you have... we know there's only a certain percentage that make it. So is it not just when you've got a lot of picks, you're going to have a lot more busts?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
but
think there is an element of that. And I think
they had a lot of early picks. None of them are going to be started.
So even if you look back, we've done this before, haven't we, on previous shows? The percentage...
It's about 50% of the first round.
Yeah.
You'd class.
And then the second round, 30%.
Yeah.
So if you got that many...
I'm just saying this is one of the worst draft classes of all time.
But I think the more you get, the more shots in the dark you got.
Vegas had 13 top 100 picks between 2018 and 2020 on the Gruden. 11 of those 13s have been cut or traded for next to nothing, or had their 5th-year option declined. That doesn't include Alex Leatherwood, who was also in 2021.
Yeah, but we talked a lot last year about how much of a problem Vegas seems to be, with all of its lights and all of its things that can just attract the players. Like, they seem to have more DUIs, more car incidents, more people ending up in prison, getting arrested.
Isn't it?
Like, there's just too much temptation for young guys with crazy amounts of money. Like, so you're going to keep taking these people that were probably from some quite humble backgrounds in lots of cases,
who suddenly get a lot of money.
Loads of money, where there's just loads of ways to go and spend that money the way you shouldn't.
Yeah. No,
it's going to be really difficult. They've got to have the right leadership in that franchise, and they've got to really protect those young players. Otherwise, you're going to keep seeing that in Vegas. I think it's going to be something they're going to have to really watch.
It is. I agree with you, and I think it is all.
If you go to Green Bay, there is nothing to do, which is why Aaron Rodgers just drinks
Literally
whiskey.
why Brett Favre went to Green Bay.
Yeah,
It's like the only place he could go where he wouldn't get in trouble.
And he still managed it.
And he still managed to get in trouble.
But it's so boring. He's had to go to Peru to drink ayahuasca this fucking off season.
Aaron Rodgers or Brett
Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Brett Favre, I imagine, is too busy running from the law.
Probably. Right. Other cuts. Patriots cut Malcolm Butler.
I'll cut you, Butler.
Who else? We got
Dolphins. They
Sonny Michel.
Sonny Michel, but also fantasy favourite Mohamed Sanu's gone.
God.
So when Griff picks him up in week 3, he will be a free agent.
Him and Aguilar, like honestly, those two should just fuck off out of the league.
So frustrating. The Browns have cut Josh Rosen. He's gone. Sheldon Day, the defensive tackle's gone.
Josh Gordon at the Chiefs gone. I know there's a lot of wide out capital and they're kind of doing wide out by committee in Kansas, but I thought Josh Gordon would have been a good option there.
Yep. Jay Sternberger, the tight end for the Steelers. He's been cut. This feels like a... Kenyon Drake was cut previously. He's now been picked up by the Ravens. Could be
That's a good signing, that is.
Sorry, he's been cut by the Raiders, but picked up by the Ravens.
Oh, sorry.
That's good.
Yeah.
He can be shit there as well.
Jeff Driscoll. Jeff Driscoll's been cut by the Texans. We mentioned
podcast favourite Nate Peterman.
Nate Sudfeld also got cut by the 49ers.
And we should probably mention that every quarterback that's not Dak Prescott at the Cowboys.
They can't afford anyone else.
Yeah.
Jake Luton,
Jake.
cut by the Jaguars. This feels like that episode of The Simpsons, doesn't it?
Yeah. But you're cut. You're cut.
You're cut.
Jeff Swaim's safe.
Thank fuck.
Will Greer's gone, though. We mentioned the Cowboys getting rid of all their...
That is top 10 talent in a draft, you know.
Yeah, Davis Webb has gone from the Giants.
He'll be a coach somewhere. I think
Kiki Cootie's gone.
Oh, my
No!
God. The whole draft class of Pauls is falling apart.
Yeah,
The next thing
Will Greer's just in a park throwing to Kiki Cootie. Paul just there on his own, crying.
The next thing
He
you'll be
could have
telling
been
me,
so good.
Hakeem Butler's not even on a squad.
That's very true. The Saints traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles. Eagles now, we said before the show, quite deep at the defensive back and looking like a really good team. We'll talk about them during our NFC review. Kevin White was cut by the Saints, and that's his career pretty much over. Again,
yeah.
Geronimo Allison was cut.
There's a really obvious joke there.
Yeah.
Tevin Coleman, cut before he's injured.
Tevin Austin was also cut as well.
Bad day for Nate and Tevens.
Ian Book was cut by the Saints.
But Nate Peterman and Ian Book are both expected to be on practice squads.
I think some of these will make practice squads, certainly. And that's about it.
To be fair,
there's lots
the
more.
Cowboys
but
will probably
they're
just
the ones
stick
that
a quarterback on practice squad, won't they?
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
Well, imagine suck. If it goes wrong, yeah.
Right, let's call that half time and we'll be back for our NFC review after the break.
Thank you for returning for part 2.
There you are.
I know. Not everyone has returned for part 2. You'll notice that I am not James.
What?
But I am committed to being here even on my time off. Right, we're back, and last week we had a full preview of the AFC. This time, it's the NFC preview. Everyone's done their research. Gary's even done the right research this week, which is just shocking for everyone.
I mean, that's a very bold statement to make that everyone's done their research.
I'm making an assumption. An informed assumption. We're sticking to the same compass points as last week. Gary, you were doing the East, John the North, Paul the South, and Jim, if he comes back, will be doing the West. Otherwise, I will stumble my way through that.
Which is fine other than me and John are the other way around.
Oh, well, I apologise. I was only reading it off of here.
So I wasn't
No,
listening.
never mind.
I'm
Never
the
mind.
South.
Carry on as if nothing is happening. Let us run quickly through the rules. Same rules as last week. 4 minutes per team. 1 time out per division. Should someone want to tell me that I'm picking the wrong player to be a top 15 wide receiver?
That was bullshit.
We'll wait and see. Very similar career numbers to AJ Brown. Just saying. It may not be as absurd as you think.
Turns out a podcast shits on the woods.
So whether you're picking the Bears to win the North or Geno Smith to be MVP, we'll soon find out. We're also looking for a bold bet to pick Paul's pocket for each division. We are starting with the North. Paul Farrow.
I'd like to start by taking you to Green Bay.
I'd love to go with you to Green Bay.
Exactly.
I don't want to go.
Well, it looks nice.
Well, you stay in the South. Me and Griff are going to get really bored and cold up in Green Bay. So,
lots of cheese.
This is really interesting in terms of, obviously, last season they had the last dance, didn't they, with Devontae Adams and Rodgers putting on those graphics on social media and everyone like, okay, this is their last big shot. And unfortunately, he met his nemesis, the 49ers. I find it a really interesting season because obviously Devontae Adams has gone as this big hole in the offense, but the Packers have done things which aren't very Packers. So you've got Christian Watson coming in a wideout, and a first-round wideout going to the Packers. Just I can't. That doesn't sound right.
You're relying on Rodgers to trust them.
Yeah, but I think looking at this, they've not lost much on defense. Zadarius Smith is gone, which I'll mention later in terms of where he's gone to.
It's a loss.
It's a loss, but it's not. That's not going to change the
Shouldn't
dynamic.
derail the season. No.
Taking away Devontae Adams, they've kept a lot of things. So I know I was under the impression David Bakhtiari wasn't going to come back, but he is. And
They haven't announced a return date. They're taking it week by week. Whether he'll be there for week 1, we don't know. But the fact that he could play for more than half the season is significant. You've got to keep Rodgers protected.
Yes.
And he's one of the best left tackles going.
Yes.
Comfortably. So
Sorry, we're just...
for me...
Oh, what's this? Passing the laptop round the table now as well. Unbelievable.
We're just having some technical issues.
If we're looking in terms of ranking this division, if I'm going a bit ahead of myself, this is still comfortably the best team on paper.
In this division?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you not think that the gap has been closed significantly?
No, I think one team is on the upswing, 2 teams are on the downswing. And one team is on just a massive free fall. The Packers should comfortably win this division, should comfortably get into the playoffs.
Is Aaron Jones still elite?
Yes.
I think he'll need to be more elite.
More elite, because he's now reaching the drop-off age.
He's reaching the drop-off age, and obviously...
A.J. Dillon needs to be the man, no? He actually accrued more rushing yards than Jones last year.
Just needs to back him up, doesn't he?
They've had a strong rushing game, and to be fair, they've always had a strong rushing game. Even with feast mode, they had a strong rushing game.
Yeah, some of the time.
So, for me,
love that.
The key thing for me is how they make the most of these new pieces, because Sammy Watkins, on his day, can be phenomenal. Christian Watson, as an unknown quantity, has great tape in college. It'll be interesting to see if Rodgers can spread the ball out a bit more.
With regards to Sammy Watkins, does he go in as the number 1 wide receiver?
There is no better wide receiver on that roster than him right now. Because
is he not coming off his worst professional season? But let me tell you, the answer is yes.
He is, yes, but he was playing in a team that had Kelsey and Hill.
Yeah, he was like the 4th choice receiver on the Chiefs. I actually think it's make or break time for Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
And where else could you be better set for a breakout year in your 9th NFL season or whatever it is than with the best quarterback in the league?
Well, he's had 3 straight MVPs.
Has he?
Well, he's gone from Mahomes to Lamar to Rodgers. That's been his last 3 quarterbacks, and he's falling more and more. But he's an experienced head, and he might be the person that Rodgers trusts.
It's all to do with targets, isn't it? When you've got Tyreek Hill, he's getting most of the targets. Hill and Kelsey. So you can't really look after Hill and Kelsey and go, oh, the rest are terrible, because they're just not getting enough of the ball. So they're not getting the opportunity to drop it. They're not getting the opportunity to do anything. They're just there to take defenders away from the key targets.
So, Paul, before you move on to the next team in this division, the return of Robert Tonyan, is that more key than whether or not Sammy Watkins works out?
I think that's an interesting point. Tonyan and when he's been fit, but the key 3 words there are when he's fit.
He's in the 2nd tier of tight ends in the league for me, but availability is key.
Hawkinson, Goddard, all those kind of players.
He's a tight end too.
Gazicki. No, they're decent, aren't they?
No,
they're decent.
very
They're not game changers. Like, they sometimes are, but they're not Mark Andrews. They're not Kelsey. They're not Kittle.
No, that's it. They're not Waller. Blah, blah, blah.
You love Waller, didn't you? Every
well,
time.
Honestly, going to be tight end number 1 this year.
No way.
It's not just Watson, though, is it? He's not the only new wide receiver in Green Bay, because Dubs
Yeah, Romeo Doubs. Yes,
I know it's
he's
pre-season.
been excellent in pre-season, but
Pre-season
again,
hype.
it's going to come down to trust, and this is the problem you have with Aaron Rodgers. Is if once he decides he doesn't love you, you're never getting the ball. That's why Alan Lazard is still there, because he really rates him. Alan Lazard is one of the slowest wide receivers in the league. He runs like I do, but Aaron Rodgers loves him. That's the same reason why Randall Cobb is still there.
Randy.
At what point last year did you go, oh, Randall Cobb looks good?
But Randall Cobb is someone who
A couple of times.
He's a sure-handed receiver.
he's
I'm a short.
You're a short-armed receiver, is what you are.
T-Rex in the backfield.
Do you know, I'm going to call the time out here, but to tell a completely irrelevant story, you know when you're getting old, because after your game of squash that you play every week, you go up to Tesco's to get a drink because it's above where the squash courts are, and you're in there and you really want the Iron Brew, but the Iron Brew is the last can at the back of the shelf, and you've only got tiny arms. And your belly sticks out a little bit. So you're reaching up for the Iron Brew, but you can't reach it. So you settle for the Mountain Dew, which is adequately stacked next to it. And as you turn to walk away, a very large teenager comes over and says, "Excuse me, mate, do you want that last can of Iron Brew?" And you play it down and you say, No, I'm all right. And he says, "You do though, don't you?" And he reaches it for you and hands it to you and guides you to the checkouts like an elderly person.
Why don't you just go
You
to
didn't
the
guide me
pub
to the checkouts.
Why don't you just go to the pub like a real man?
You've been assisted in a shop by a teenager. Have you please?
Back to the the Packers.
Paul, quickly, take us to the next team.
The next team I'd like to focus on is the Minnesota Vikings. So,
It's an up year, surely, an up year.
well, they are without Zimmer, which is interesting.
I think Mike Zimmer got a bad rap, but the message had clearly run out there. That's all. He's a really good coach.
They're good coach.
Good coach.
Yeah, good coach.
Yeah.
That's for our Welsh listeners, probably.
Great girlfriend.
He did have a great girlfriend, to be fair.
He must be slinging dick.
I've often thought that. I really want to normalise that as a turn of
Nothing to do
phrase.
with the
Are
30
we-
million in the bank.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings, if everything on paper, their roster is very good.
Superb quarterback.
He's just above league average for me. He will do what you need him to do.
Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Jimmy G?
Kirk Cousins.
I think they're the same. I think they're exactly the same quarterback. They're both
Yeah, but
making
they're
loads
not,
of
I think
money,
Cousins doesn't get as injured as Jimmy G.
but he also doesn't get as far in the playoffs as Jimmy G. So it's the one trade-off for the other.
There's a lot of players who are, let's be stars. Justin Jefferson is a star.
Justin Jefferson
Justin
and
is a
Adam
star.
Thielen are stars at wide
Dalvin
receiver.
Cook, when he's fit and he's on form, is a star.
They have one of the best backup running backs in the league as well in Matteson.
Yes.
Yeah, almost plug in.
Yeah, and don't forget CJ Ham.
So the other thing that's interesting then, the defense is Danielle Hunter. A fit Danielle Hunter is scary.
Again, it requires availability. That's what this team has lacked over the last couple of 3 seasons, is their star players available at the right times. Dalvin Cook, on his day, is the best running back in the league. I don't think that's not a Robert Woods moment. That's a genuine thing. Like, he really is, but you're probably going to miss him for 3 or 4 games a season. And even last year when he was on the field, he wasn't as effective as he has been because he was hamstrung by injuries.
Is that not every running back, though, that's been in the league 2 or 3 years? Because
Many of
the
them,
first 2 years, their knees can take it. But then after that, they very rarely do they all get through a 16-game season. Derrick Henry didn't last season. Aaron Jones didn't. Chubb didn't.
I think it's true.
They've got they've got some decent players coming in. They've got Jordan Hicks, who's coming from Arizona. You've got Dalvin Tomlinson, who I know.
Zadarius Smith has come across from Green Bay.
Yeah, Darius Smith. There's been some decent additions. I just think they're an interesting team to watch because for me, they should finish second in this division.
See, I think if they're settling for second in this division, they are underplaying themselves. I think this squad is as good as the Green Bay squad, and they should be pushing for winning the division.
I agree with you, but this is a team that's come off a down year, and there's no superstar addition to this team.
But I think the squad is good enough. Bearing in mind the subtractions that Green Bay have had, I think the Vikings should be much closer, and they would be a disappointment if they don't finish either ahead of Green Bay or within a game of Green Bay.
They worry me at corner. Patrick Peterson is great 4 years ago.
Well, there is that.
Harrison Smith, I know he's not a corner, but Harrison Smith is entering his 13th year in the league, I think.
Is he? Wow.
Let me get the exact number up. Sorry, my mistake, 11th.
Oh, okay.
But you've had Andrew Booth Jr., who's a decent cornerback coming in the draft.
If the defensive line holds up and plays to its potential, it will matter less what happens in the defensive backfield. So again, it's injury related, which is always guesswork, but they've got to be looking to be closer and more competitive with Green Bay. You cannot hand this division to Green Bay. Look at what the Bills have tried to do or have done successfully in the AFC East. Same with what the Dolphins are trying to do. They can't just sit back and assume, well, we'll try and finish second behind the Patriots. Eventually, you have to say, right, now's our time. And you've taken away the best weapon in Green Bay. You've got to go for it now. You've got to be on your upswing, on your game, and hope that your players play to their maximum potential. Dalvin Cook is better than any of the running backs on the Green Bay roster.
Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs going when he's fit, but he's not fit enough.
Justin Jefferson is better than any of the Green Bay wide receivers, and so is Adam Thielen.
Justin Jefferson is a top 15 receiver.
And Adam Thielen?
No.
Top 20?
He was 2 years ago, but Thielen is coming towards the end of his career.
He's still a red zone threat.
Very good.
Yeah, he's not a downfield threat as much.
But he's not I don't know what he got last year, 700 yards, something like that, I would guess.
6-7 touchdowns?
Maybe more.
Yeah.
He did well with touchdowns, I think. He was doing very well, but I just don't think he's used in the game enough.
710 touchdowns.
There you go.
So brilliant for fantasy. A great fantasy flex player.
But for what my counter here is, what Paul is saying is, yes, the cornerback position is weakness on the Vikings. It's a problem, and it's a new coach. All of that is
halfway
true.
around the league.
But the offense is better than the one that Green Bay is putting on the field. We give Aaron Rodgers all this praise, but what's he won? One Super Bowl in all this time with all these great players.
I don't give him that much praise.
No, well, you don't, and I don't now. But I don't see why the Vikings should be happy to settle for second. They should be trying to win this division with this team. It's a really good team, which is why Mike Zimmer was let go, because he's not getting the most out of a really good team.
Kevin O'Connell is an interesting appointment.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what this team does, but for me, they're going to finish second in the division. Their biggest weakness last year was the treatment table.
No, it was really strong. The table was fine. There was just too many people on it.
Yeah, so the next team I'd like to move on to, and if I get 4 minutes, I ain't going to take it, is the Chicago Bears.
Well, it shouldn't take long. Well,
that's all I'm going to say. They're a team that they've got Justin Fields, but you can't blame him. It feels a little bit like Darnold at the Jets. I've
been saying this. I get told I'm being too harsh. It's not a personal thing on Justin Fields. He was raw coming in. He needed a really good coaching staff, and he ended up at the Bears, who haven't had a good coaching staff ever.
It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Now, the thing for me with them, there's nobody kind of wanting to be there. Justin Jefferson looks delighted to be in Minnesota.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players who want to play for Green Bay. Who wants to play for the Bears?
Not Roquan Smith, who is going to play there. He has said he'll play out the last season of his deal, which again is very mature, something you were mentioning earlier.
And
but
he's the player to watch for them because he's playing for that big roster spot next year.
He doesn't want to be there. He's playing to be on someone else's roster spot.
Yeah, he's putting himself in the shop window, isn't he? He deserves for what he's done for a shit team. He deserves that big contract that, for some reason, Chicago aren't willing to give him. So, yeah, but as well, it gets to week 13, 14, and the Bears are shit, and he's like thinking, I'd probably like to start well at my new team. Those niggles, those injuries that might think,
my back.
My back hurts, I'll come out of this game. Or that, as I say, we mentioned it last week, 50-50s become 60-40s, 75-25s, because he doesn't want to get himself injured.
Over hundreds.
Well, yeah.
They're a team that I genuinely feel. So I had a couple of silly bets, but I don't think this bet is silly enough. I think the Bears could be picking number one overall.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt that they'll be in the bottom three. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Matt Eberflus has no record as a head coach. Now, that's fine. You've got to start somewhere. But you don't want to be pinning your reputation on this squad. It's just not very good.
I don't know what the team are trying to do. So, like, you can see with, well, not to steal your thunder in any way, Gary, but New York has been terrible for years, and there's a 3-5 year plan. I don't get what they're doing in Chicago. Are they burning it down? Are they?
I think they are. I think they're burning it down.
I don't know. Their best player on offense is David Montgomery, and Khalil Herbert was a decent number 2. But their wide receiver room is among the worst, if not the worst, in the league. You said earlier about the Falcons. We were talking about the fact that they've released players in the cuts, and we're like, wow, who are they going to play at wide receiver? But here's the wide receiver group for your Bears. Darnell Mooney, excellent player.
I like Darnell Mooney.
On a bad team.
Yep.
Stands out very well. On other teams, he's a number 2, but that's fine. Name me the guy that's playing opposite him.
I couldn't.
Byron Pringle, who's had lots of law trouble this offseason.
He was at the Chiefs and he was okay there.
Yeah. Dante Pettis.
Good player.
Decent player, but... Tajay Sharp, who was good in 2015 when he was drafted, and N'Keal Harry, who is injured.
And was bad.
And the longest name at wide receiver in the league. Equiminius St. Brown.
Of course, yeah.
And that's it. They've released Daz Newsome, who I quite liked. And there's nothing to support Justin Fields, which has been my whole point with him all along. You've got no cast. So
I remember a few years ago, we took the piss of the fact that Chicago had like 15 tight ends. They don't even have that anymore.
No, they have Ryan Griffin and Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
And Cole Kmet's a decent tight end, but he's not scaring anyone.
No.
And then the strength of their team has always been the defence, which they're transitioning from 4-3 to 3-4. Eberflus is changing the whole ethos of the defence, and your main defensive leader, Roquan Smith, doesn't want to be there. If this team's in trouble, Paul's decision that they might be picking number 1 overall, they'll certainly be in the bottom 3. It's going to be a terrible season, surely. I know we're doing predictions next week, but they've got nothing. They've got new GM, new head coach. It's a complete rebuild.
Yeah.
So what they're doing at the Bears, they could take a leap from the Lions. I like the Lions going into this season.
As do I.
I like them. I don't think they're very good, but I like them.
But they had this. They were never getting trounced.
No, they lost 7 games by 1 score, 8 games by 1 score, didn't they?
And this is a team that's got better. So at the back end of last season, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who really started to come into his own. Not like that.
Sorry.
Really started to show himself as a receiver.
Sorry.
He got good.
Magic hands.
He can catch balls.
Soft hands.
Yeah. So Amon-Ra St. Brown looked like he had a affinity with Goff.
Yes. For the last half of the season, Goff improved dramatically as well, second half of the season.
You got Marvin... No, you don't. You used to.
DJ Chark.
Marvin Jones, sorry.
You have DJ Chark, thank you.
Yeah.
Who I think was criminally underrated in Jacksonville.
He was injured last year, obviously, when they finally got a quarterback worth throwing to him.
If Amon-Ra St. Brown carries on where he left off last year and DJ Chark is the player he was before he got injured in Jacksonville, it's the second best wide receiver group in this division. It's better than what the Packers are putting on the field at wide receiver.
That's a push.
It is, because Josh Reynolds is there as well, and he's a very underrated wide receiver 3.
So
they've got Jameson Williams to come in at some point, haven't they?
Jameson Williams starts on IR.
That's on IR, but
he's quick as anything.
Oh man, if he comes back with half the pace, he's a scary man. If he comes back, as he was in college, then the Lions just got exciting on offense.
And they're getting exciting on defense. Aiden Hutchinson has been getting a lot of press. And
he's been really good in pre-season.
Yeah, you feel a little bit like everybody feels like he should have been the number 1 overall. The NFL media seem to have got behind him as well.
They need more out of Jeff Okudah.
Now, he's interesting for me because he was number 3 overall, wasn't he? He was
injured, wasn't he?
And
he had problems.
Attitude issues as well, apparently.
Yeah, but
I remember him getting bawled on the sidelines against the 49ers last year because basically I don't think he was following the instructions. I think the defensive coordinator bawled him out. And sorry.
It's a lot of hype for a team that's going to win 5 games, isn't it?
I think they'll win more than 5 games. I would say it's 6 or 7 this season.
Here's the crazy bet.
Okay.
Playoffs.
I'll take that bet.
£1.
Yes, I'm in with you. You've got no chance. Not a chance.
I'm going to put all of these bets. I'll give Paul into my retirement.
I'll shake hand for Jim as well. He'll take you on that.
I just thought
I'm keeping a track of the bets. On the
if
spreadsheet.
I'm doing crazy bet,
Yeah.
I'm going all in.
I mean, I like it, but they're not better than Green Bay, and they're not better than the Vikings. But
to get playoffs, you need a passable quarterback. They have a passable quarterback.
they have a.
You need wide out options.
They have that.
You need.
They've got DeAndre Swift, who didn't get mentioned just now, but he's a really, really good running back when the team is clicking. When the team is not clicking, he disappears.
When he's fit. As well.
But yeah, and Jamal Williams is a really good number 2 for running back. I think they've got loads of pieces. I really like the coach.
And the best media presence of all time is Jamal Williams.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he is
Such
very
great leadership.
well.
Led us to 3 victories last year. Brilliant leadership.
Thing is, I'm not big on the Vikings. Like, we've seen.
It's not school. You don't get A for efforts.
It's true.
You pay for effort. You pay for results. No results. So you can go chirp on about how great he is at leading all the time, but...
Okay, right. That's very true. We have to move on because we're slipping in our time schedule. John, bring me the NFC South.
So we'll start with the Bucks, who won it last year. Obviously, Tom's back from his brief hiatus.
Argument.
Whatever it was, I mean, quite frankly,
He
I
said,
don't-
man, I'm 45 and sometimes shit just goes down.
yeah.
I like to think he's had a colonoscopy. How was that for you, Paul?
I mean, he's been married. He's been married a long time. Is his birthday? That's but anyway. So the wide receiving unit is still mostly there.
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin, Julio Jones. I mean, he's been.
They're going to bubble wrap
Rubbish.
him for the playoffs. That's what they're going to do.
And yeah, but as well, Brady, he's got results out of Scotty Miller when needed, and
Whatever happened to him?
he's still there.
I know. He didn't do much last year.
No, at tight end, it's Cameron Brate and Carl Rudolph.
Yeah, no Gronk is key.
Yeah, but it'll be key later in the year when I think. But offensive line, he's lost some members of the offensive line. So his centre obviously is
Ryan Jensen is out.
Is out.
The guards are both out.
yeah.
Like the whole offensive line is being rebuilt in Tampa Bay.
But I know he's 45 and as mobile as
A fridge.
a fridge. But if anyone can do something with a second and a half, which we'll get, it is that.
Will he get that? I'm not sure he will. We were just saying, well, you guys were just saying about him being the number 1 player in the NFL top 100. This is the season for me that you start to see 45-year-old Brady playing like a 39-year-old normal quarterback. I think this is a season too far in Tampa, and I think the reason he's been missing for the last 2 weeks is he may have realised, I think we need to give Blaine Gabbert some first-team reps. I might get crushed here. This is not going to go exactly how he thought because the pieces are not necessarily there. Yes, the wide receiver core is brilliant, but no Gronk. He's probably not enjoying himself as much as he thought he would, and the team just isn't going to be as good.
He's probably on the phone to Julian saying, Julian, do you want to come back? I need a mate.
Speaking of people coming back, I'm back.
Hey!
Just to add on to...
And Griff's just eviscerated into...
Yeah, I know. He could have stayed where he was. It's fine. Just to jump on that point, I think there's 2 things with Brady. One, this unusual departure from training camp he had. No one knows what for, why. Did you see his interview the other week? Tom Brady is usually a good-looking guy. He looked gaunt and his hair looked a mess. It's not the Tom Brady we used to seeing.
He's been sleeping on the couch, hasn't
Obviously. And one of the reasons he always used to lose to the Miami Dolphins is they always used to put pressure up the middle. We talked about the guards and the centre back. He can't handle pressure up the middle. He never could.
No. The defence...
Every time.
The defence is still really good.
What
So hopefully
the quarterback needs when they're struggling is
Griff.
I know. He's a really good running back, and what they've done is kept Leonard Fournette and hope that playoff Lenny turns up for 17 games. I also think that's a mistake.
Yes,
I think they needed someone else, and all they've got is Gio Bernard and Keyshawn Vaughn.
Well, let's. I was just about to mention. Yeah, so the defense is really good, but they're still in a Super Bowl or bust sort of mode. You do that when you've got Tom Brady at quarterback, but it's not as good as the team last year was possibly one of the best sort of squads ever to go on a football field. But yeah, this one isn't as good. I think I feel it has potential to be a down year. Saints. Peyton's gone. So it is Dennis Allen now. There's what we thought, because they were obviously start of sort of off season. It looked like they were in cap hell. They've solved that by just booting it down the line. As well, they've got rid of Armstead. Kamara is still effectively their star player. He has legal issues because he went to Vegas and beat up someone. Allegedly, he did.
Allegedly,
that's been put off, so that could affect them in the season.
That's a 6-game suspension, isn't it?
Yeah. They have Michael Thomas back. He's fit. He's on the field. He hasn't played for 2 years. This could either be he could come back and he could maybe he could maybe he's not the player he was 2 years ago, which no one would blame him. Well, I blame him for costing himself 2 years effectively, or Jameis could maybe unlock something and he's no longer just slant the best slant runner in the league getting 8 yards. Jameis might unlock, because Jameis is still a different quarterback to Drew Brees. He's got Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave. Marcus Callaway showed at the end of the season that he's a touchdown threat. There are options for Jameis.
For me, that's the biggest difference between this Saints team and the last Saints team that Michael Thomas was on. That year where he had the most receptions, he had to have the most receptions because there was just no other receiving threat.
I will not have you sully the good name of Keith Kirkwood on a podcast with me.
I didn't mention him because he's so forgettable.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
Been cut today, though.
I know, that's why I mentioned him. By the Panthers as well.
I mean, so you mentioned Thomas Landry. Chris Olave, I think he's going to be one of those players that we come to draft in the top 30 of fantasy drafts moving forward over the next few years. I wouldn't rule out tight end Adam Troutman having a good year.
Yeah. No.
Taysom Hill's also listed as a tight end now, by the way.
He is. But whether Allen will use him in quite the same way, we'll see. The defense is still excellent. Really is. Yeah. So the defensive line, brilliant. The linebackers, all throughout the team, they've added, Matthew, who's not been the same player he was, even though he does play quite a lot of games, more than people realised. But add some more leadership into the defence. The stars everywhere. The defence could be absolutely lights out, and they'll love playing against Brady and his ramshackle O-line.
They've got the number on Brady. They beat him twice last year.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's Davenport, Cam Jordan. They're going to have a great time.
The key thing for Dennis Allen is he's going to be in charge of the team and the defense, and he has kept all of Peyton's offensive play callers
Yeah.
and quarterbacks, coaches, and everything because they were really good. So the team should be pretty damn good.
So, next, Falcons.
Oh dear.
So, we used the Falcons last week as an excuse that bad teams can get 7 wins. Matt Ryan has gone. He's been replaced by Michael Griffin's Marcus Mariota. Around him, there's Cordell Patterson at running back.
Wide back.
Drake London at wide receiver. Of course, Calvin Ridley is not playing next season because he was a very evil man who made $1,000 worth of bets.
A game he had no involvement in.
Exactly. So, can Marcus Mariota finally unlock the player that we all know Olamide Zacchaeus could be?
I'm glad you pronounced that.
Kyle Pitts, he had a decent year, but he still only scored 1 touchdown. And that was with Matt Ryan at quarterback. Let's see what Marcus can do in the first 6 games he plays before they bring in Desmond Ridder.
A man who
The
looks
defense-
far older than 22 years old. That looks like a guy who's seen things.
Yeah, he does.
Lived in Cincinnati for a while, so.
Defense last year was appalling. They have some decent players on it, but it's still not great.
I think you're being kind there.
Yeah. It's really hard to be positive about when I'm looking for the previews. I'm like, who would I draft on my fantasy team for them? And I look through it and I went, nope. Koo. I'd draft Koo, the kicker.
Kyle Pitts.
If I was taking Kyle Pitts, then I think 7 other tight ends would have had to have gone over the
Well,
board.
I think Pitts is going to have a really stellar year. There's
Somebody's
nothing
got to
else
get the
there.
targets.
I think Pitts is going to end up as a top 5 at least.
Kels, Kittle, Andrews, Waller. I think I'm going to say 6 or 7 best than him. But yeah, the guy has talent. I just don't think the team around him and the guy under center is good enough to unlock that.
Well, to be fair, Mariota's best range is the one covered by the tight end across the middle. He's pretty good at that.
Well, his best range is 8 yards, which he'll run into, and then get clobbered. Falcons. They worry me. Panthers. So we've had the quarterback battle throughout the last few weeks since Baker came in. They announced Baker was going to become the number 1, and then Darnold got injured anyway. Rolled his ankle. Had his ankle rolled.
Scared by a ghost.
Oh no! I swear, I'd have crapped my pants if that happened to me. The Panthers, you look at them; they shouldn't be as bad as they are.
I completely agree.
The defense really good.
Yep.
Like when they were 3-0 last year, you looked at me. That's because of the defense. They've added Baker. I think will be better than Darnold. He'll be definitely better than fucking Cam and PJ Walker.
Baker with a point to prove is a scary Baker.
He's always good.
If they have the best, I still think they have the best running back in the league if he's fit.
Yeah, which is a huge if.
It's a huge if.
It's a fair if.
It's DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall. I quite like Laviska Shenault, who they bought in. I think he's fun.
He fits with what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Curtis Samuel there for a while. He's that type of gadgety player.
Robbie Anderson,
It's a deep threat.
it's a deep threat, which, let's see how he gets
50%
on.
of the time, he's a deep threat.
Yeah, you just never know which 50% it is.
And I don't know who their tight end is.
You haven't mentioned Tommy Tremble.
But I was about to say, is it Tommy Tremble? Because I don't
Ian
want.
Thomas.
It better be Tommy Tremble.
It's better be Tommy Tremble.
But then
The defensive line is still
Baker
not
didn't
bad.
have much success with a tight end. I mean, he had Count and Juco who I think is probably more talented than those two, but he just doesn't throw to a tight end. That's fine.
And if McCaffrey's fit, it doesn't matter because the short ball is going to Christian McCaffrey. Chuba Hubbard, or whatever, has proved he's a decent backup, but he's not. He is not Christian McCaffrey.
He's the first player that get picked up in fantasy once McCaffrey gets injured.
Oh yeah, but.
So you're saying if I'm drafting, I should have Chuba Hubbard in the cupboard?
Yeah.
And don't forget they signed Johnny Hecker as a punter.
Oh, have they? Of course, yes. But they also have Zane Gonzalez as kicker, who was pants. So they should be good. But they should have been good last year, and they weren't. To me, they're the biggest, downside, upside, the biggest sort of gap between them.
It all comes down to, we've said it a number of times in the off-season, Matt Rule is on the hottest of hot seats.
Yes.
I think he was lucky to survive last year. Griff just wrote down 9 or 8, or Rule is out. I couldn't agree more.
I can agree with that. If I was going to do a prediction, I'm going to go Saints, Bucks, Panthers, Falcons.
Bucks will win that division.
I still think Bucks will win it. I think it'll be tight.
It'll be tighter this year. They've closed because the Bucks have got worse, but the Bucks have still got the most talented roster by far, I think. On both sides of the ball.
Right. What's the crazy bet?
The crazy bet. I didn't think of this before I started.
It's all week.
I know, but some of us don't do our planning until we get here. And
Science on a podcast is always what I like.
Whisper.
Baker for 4,000 yards. Ooh. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Hang on, we're saying he will or he won't?
You're saying the over or the
over?
Over. You're saying over 4,000 yards.
yards.
I'll take that bet.
He's definitely getting over 4,000 yards. So, I'm not taking the bet.
Then you're not taking the bet.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yep.
I will take the bet because I think Baker gets injured.
Yeah.
Accord.
But he will be a massive upgrade.
Hang on. Is it Baker or Brady?
Baker.
Oh.
I don't think Baker will get that much.
No, he won't get 4,000 yards. I'm taking that bet. Sorry. Cord.
Yeah, okay.
Very moving to the next.
Oh, it's me.
East.
East
in the East.
Right. So I'm going to go in order of where I think the division is going to go. So
You're not starting with the Giants, are you?
no. Save them till last. Maybe not. So we'll start with the Cowboys. So I did some prep this week. So I've done a bit of breakdown, kind of key additions, what I think the key weaknesses are, and then what the pros are to each one. So key additions, they didn't really do loads this year because they spent a lot of money last year, but James Washington, injured, and Dante Fowler, biggest names that kind of came in at the Cowboys, which will definitely help. Dante Fowler's a piece they needed.
When they lost Randy Gregory, that's...
Yeah, so
almost something else.
Yeah, almost like for like. And then I suppose the issues, because the Cowboys, they flatter to deceive, don't they? For decades now, almost. It's getting it is getting a bit silly, and so I think these are the key bits at the moment. So the head coach uncertainty, McCarthy is
busted.
He's probably on the hottest after Rule. If it's not Rule, it's McCarthy. And he needs a deep playoff run this year.
He might be there next year.
Yeah.
Not if Sean Payton.
And that's the thing. Payton is just, lurking around.
Yeah.
He's just waiting to go to the Cowboys. And everyone knows it. And the players know it.
You've already told us you think the Cowboys are going to win this division because you've started with them.
I do think they're going to win
And
the
I
division.
think you're so far wrong.
I think you're wrong as well.
Yeah, I do as well.
That was my.
We'll
get through that.
Getting 15 touchdowns.
So but when we go through it,
Right.
so McCarthy's an issue, which we know because he runs that offense. Injuries at wide receiver, obviously they've traded away Amari Cooper, thinking that they had enough, and then what they've then got, you've got Gallup out, Johnson out. It's got a problem now at wide receiver.
They've got one wide receiver who's active for week 1 who's caught a pass from Dak Prescott.
Yep.
It's not very many.
I'm also worried that Zeke still elite? Now that's for me is a massive question. Obviously, last year we saw Pollard and Zeke, really kind of like Zeke still, got 1,000 yards, and did score touchdowns, but he just wasn't as dynamic as we'd seen him in the past.
Is it fair to say the running back room is elite, but neither of the players are elite?
Yeah, it's like a poor version of what the Browns have in some ways.
Yeah.
Because Chubb is better than... Why is Chubb funny?
Jesus. Oh, it's because it's a nickname for an erection.
Oh, right, okay. Fair enough.
A penis enlarged with blood.
Brilliant.
Engorged, you might say.
But
moving
I
on.
suppose the question is it enough to help Dak where he really needs it?
Down the middle.
Fuck's sake.
I
did prep tonight. Will you fucking let me go?
I mean, I wrote down my key player for the Cowboys with all the wide receiver injuries, Dalton Schultz.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He played very well last year,
He was
didn't he?
good. And, back to the point about Pitts, he could be a tight end that sees more action than Pitts.
Yep.
Definitely. And the other problem you've got at the Cowboys, I'm just going to talk over you, bellends, right?
I'm sorry, a tight end that sees more action. Come on now.
I'm in the zone. So
You could have told me there's a player called Dave Choate, and that would have finished me off.
there was also last year a massive issue with consistency at the Cowboys. So the Cowboys actually averaged the most offensive yards per game last year in the league, 407 yards of offense every single game.
Playing the Giants twice a year. That helps.
They do play the Giants twice a year, but also they play the Commanders as well twice a year. And there were some real blowout victories, and they seem to do. They are inconsistent, and that's a real problem. And you see when they get to the playoffs against better defenses, that's the problem. They just can't pick them apart in the same way. And obviously, we now know that Tyron Smith is injured in a big way,
Huge loss.
and that is
the
absolutely
last
huge.
time he injured, Dak Prescott was sacked about 7 times.
It was
It was against the Falcons. Wasn't
Falcons. Yeah, I can't remember who it was.
it? Grady Jarrett? Did he have? No, it was some unknown who got 6 sacks.
Is it like Poe or something? But yeah, 6 sacks on him. It's worrying.
But on the other hand, Dak is coming into the season fit this year, and he still had a very good year last season. He only threw something like 7 interceptions or something last year. It was a really low number, so he has matured as a quarterback. So I think that's really important. They are going to get a lot of these wide receivers back when they need them. They're not out with long-term injuries. And I think the defense has got better. Micah Parsons was amazing last year. He is basically half a defense on his own. And what we've seen is, in recent years, the defense kind of looked like they should be good and let the Cowboys down. Whereas I think now the defense is very good. And when you look at their roster, if everybody is fit, their roster is still up there with the best rosters.
Yep.
The depth of it as well.
Absolutely.
In the NFL. So that's why, for me, there's other teams that have improved in this division because they had to, but the Cowboys will still win the division because of that reason. So,
Right, who's coming second then?
So next we go to the Eagles, which have done some big moves this season. I think even in the draft, Jordan David at tackle potentially was the best tackle in the actual draft, and AJ Brown is that's a real game changer. That is a top 10, top 15 wide receiver coming in to go alongside Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, whoever else they want to throw at.
having
Wobble
Jalen
Woods
Reagor.
edition.
Jalen Reagor might not be there tomorrow.
He might not be, but he's at the time it's still a lot of potential. So there's not many teams out there where you can see that kind of potential there, and they've got Pascal as well. Who's got 400 yards, but as a wide receiver 4, that's not the end of the world, is it? The actual the squad is good, and then you've got Hurts. So our friend Jalen Hurts, who is looking more and more like the atypical mobile quarterback in the NFL. And I know you hate to admit it, Jim, but he looks like, and I know some people are saying it's a prove it year for Jalen Hurts. I just don't agree. I think the Eagles are sold on him, and I really think they're trying to build around him with the pieces they need.
I think they have confidence in him at the moment. I think it's a prove year because it'll be the year where he's now due a contract, and it will also be a year where the Eagles have got 2 top draft picks next year. So if things do go tits up for him, I don't think he will. I think he'll be fine. It means they can move up and select his replacement.
And if they don't need to, they're just going to get stronger.
Yeah.
I think the offensive line is very good. They protected Jalen Hurts pretty well last year, and again, that's just going to help. Obviously, the coach, Sirianni's in his second year now. He did very well for his first year. They overachieved last season.
He blew expectations away last year. I think this time last year, we were sitting here going, Eagles are going to be shocking.
Literally, I've gone through our thing. Who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, and then you kind of look at some other key areas. We talk about secondary a lot. They've got Bradbury and Slay. You're like, well, actually, you look at that. That's one of the best cornerback rooms you're going to get out there.
Just say that they traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well to improve that depth there. I really like Nakobe Dean, the middle linebacker they drafted. He could be an absolute force in the middle. So, yeah.
My only issues that I have...
Go for this. I know what you're going to say here.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
I've got 2 things.
Right. I'm right on one of them.
One of them is the defensive line.
Right.
Now, I don't think that the defensive line have had the impact it should have had over the last 2 to 3 years. Yeah?
Yep, yeah, that's fair.
And
I think
when you look
Cox
at...
is older.
They are older.
Yeah.
And they may have come past their peak, but when you look at the money you're paying that defensive line, they don't do enough.
Yeah.
And for me, they've allowed teams to play through the middle of them way too much over the last couple of years, and that's where they've really been hurt. So that's a big issue that I still don't think is quite right. And then the other issue is running back. Now, I said earlier to the boys as we were driving over that I decided that they were just a committee of average. So Miles Sanders, Gainwell and Scott, that I wouldn't pick any of them in fantasy. I wouldn't trust them
Sanders
at all.
was like a top 10 pick last year for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's injured, and when he is on the field,
Well, he's no better than Gainwell. He's no better than Scott.
Yeah.
They just flatter to deceive, all of them. They pick you up 50 yards and the odd touchdown. And this is an Eagles team that used to like to keep the ball on the ground. They're obviously trying to do it by committee, but you've got to have some kind of
a bit more quality, or you've got to be a Carl Shanahan type play caller, which Sirianni isn't.
And that is the reason why I don't think they quite match the Cowboys yet. I don't think they've got the depth. I don't think their roster's quite as rounded as the Cowboys.
Fair.
Coaching might take them there because McCarthy is, he could lose it for him, but we'll see. But I think if he has a bad start to the season, you'll see Peyton in quickly. Right.
Third place.
So am I. You ready, boys?
Be careful.
I have gone for the Giants.
Good.
So, some key additions then. So, I think Joe Shern and Dabble. We're going with Dabble. Yeah. No, we're going with Dabble.
Dable.
I think they're both very good appointments.
Yeah.
You've hired them as a 2. We've seen other teams, other franchises do it, and it has worked. But you've got to do something that your franchise has not done for 15 years, which is actually give them time to do something. You haven't actually done loads in the off season. You've drafted pretty well. I like Thibodeau, but
If he's fit.
Obviously, I think the injury's not going to be too serious.
He'll be week
He hasn't
2-3.
He doesn't have a history of injuries. It's just he's going to miss the
I think it's just a shame when you draft big, you want to see him at the start of the season, don't you? And I think Evan Neal seems to have struggled a little bit in pre-season, but I still think he was a good tackle. And you really need something to help your quarterback situation. So that was a good move. I don't really like the signing of Tyrod, if I'm honest. I think there's way better out there. You could have gone... And I know you've got the option next year of probably going and getting a young quarterback, but...
Or Jimmy G.
Or whatever it might be. But I just think there might have been a better option. I know you didn't have a lot of cap space, but I don't think you go, I'm not going to play Daniel Jones because I can play Tyrod Taylor. But I'm not sure that's a decision I'd really want.
The whole point is this is Daniel Jones's year.
This is definitely proven.
The whole point is it is Daniel Jones's year. It's it's to make or break. Tyrod is signed for 2 years because next year, if it's not Daniel Jones, which I'm not going to lie, it probably isn't going to be.
Yeah.
Then there's some continuity when the new guy comes in. That's all.
Yeah.
That's why Tyrone.
I just hope that the organisation has said this year and next year, whatever you're going to do, we're not expecting to see the fruits of your labour till year 3, because otherwise that's going to be pressure that they just don't need, because you don't have a solution at quarterback. Neither of them will be there next year, I don't think.
The fact that the Giants have gone through, 3 coaches in 6 years, I think they will be given time this time.
Yeah.
And also, those
they've signed the GM together, worked together.
The previous time it's been GM, then head coach and GM. This time they've done it done it the right way.
My favourite subject is the weakness of the wide receiver corps at the Giants. And we argue about it a lot, but when you go through it, Golladay, Tony, Shepard, you've got
there were
you've
rumours
got a rookie as well.
Golladay.
Yeah, just too expensive.
Yeah. And that's what I said. I've said this before. It's not necessarily that they're terrible players. They're not. They're 500-600, but you're paying them as if they're Devontae Adams. It's poor management of your roster, and it doesn't help your quarterback situation, or vice versa. So that is definitely an issue. I think tight end looks really weak. You've got, when you look at it, Bellinger, some other people I've never heard of, and that's it. So you've got, Jones, is inaccurate as a passer at times, and he doesn't even have a tight end to find. It's not really a great strategy, if you ask me. I think we're seeing the culmination. Struggle with cap space, struggle with depth on the roster, key areas. Where you've got some rookies, and you just never know. You might have found a gem, but you've got just huge areas of the roster that just aren't great. But I do think the defense has the potential, if you get everyone fit, to help you win a couple more games than last year.
There's one piece coming back, being fit in the defense, which is Xavier McKinney at safety, who I think he played 2 games before he got injured, and he looks decent.
He's a good player.
Good player.
I agree with Gary's point about the wide receiver room, though. As much as I like the players individually, your top 4 receivers are all back from last year, and they scored a grand total of 3 touchdowns between them.
Kadarius Toney, if he can be fit, if he can be motivated, has the potential to be huge for us.
Kenny Golladay's got 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns in one season, and one other 1,000 yards season. Outside of that, he's just flat to deceive. He had those 2,000 yard seasons in a row, then got injured with Matt Stafford. Then he got injured, and then he got paid by the Giants because the Giants needed something.
Yeah,
And it's just what happened at the time. A couple of bits of positivity. Let's be positive as well, because I've got them in 3rd, so there must be something.
Are they in 3rd because they're better, or are they in 3rd because you think the Commanders are going to be terrible?
Well, no, I do think the defense is competitive. I think Crowder was good last year. Not the normal Crowder, different Crowder.
That's Crowder.
And for me, if you win more games, it's because Saquon plays well. Now, Saquon hopefully is coming off a full preseason. Now, I'm not bought into Saquon's going to ever be the Saquon he was. I think you've got Brady backing him up this year, which is more positive. And I think that will be enough to kind of get you ahead of the Commanders, which we'll go on to next. Now, again, they've obviously brought in Carson Wentz for a ridiculous amount of money, which was crazy. They did bring in a new wide receiver. They brought in Dotson from the draft, and he's apparently impressed in camp. And they've also brought in a guard in Andrew Norwell as well. So they've done a couple of bits.
And Norwell's been around for a long time.
Yeah, which is good. The only pro I really had for this organisation, the only thing I can see that's positive with what they're doing, is that their wide receiver core looks okay. Actually, Scary Terry, Samuel, and Dotson. Those 3 are actually pretty decent. And when you look, especially at the offensive, the first roster for the Commanders, actually I'd say it probably lines up against the Giants, but the depth is terrible. There is literally nothing in the depth chart after literally running back 1. wide receiver one, quarterback, you've got Heineke and then Howell, and neither of them are good enough behind Wentz, who isn't also good enough. And the secondary looks terrible. And then what should be a really great defensive front with Payne, Allen, Sweat, Young, it just lacks all that dynamism because Chase Young just isn't there. And he should have been, a real game changer. And he was for the 8 or 9 games where we saw him at his best. But this is the risk with these players. It's a dynamic position. And if they get knee injuries, then you just never know if you're going to see that player again. And the other thing as well that we know about this franchise, and I think we're going to see it more this year, is just the toxic atmosphere that we're going to see at quite an empty stadium and the impact that's going to have. So, like I say, I think they've got some players. I like Antonio Gibson. I think he's been a solid running back for 2 or 3 years now. He'll get lots of volume of work. J.D.
McKissick, I quite like as a gadget,
Yeah, so they've got, like I say, I think especially on offense, their first team players, actually, if they stayed fit, but again, Logan Thomas, like I say, you look at every single position, tight end 1, running back 1, you go, yeah, they look okay. But there's nothing behind it.
Quickly qualify what you're saying by pointing out that you said the thing most likely to let the Cowboys down is the coaching. The thing most likely to elevate the Commanders is the coaching.
Yes.
Over both McCarthy and Dabble.
Potentially, yes. He's
better than
those. Yeah. We don't know about Dabble, do we? Because
at the moment
we don't know.
He's better than.
But yes, I would say definitely we've got a great opportunity to say that he's potentially the best coach in that division. But Sirianni was good last year. It's just like there's such a horrible place, isn't it? We see this anywhere with a toxic culture. It's just nothing can operate at its optimum level. So you're going to see the same thing. Like they're not going to get the same amount of energy from the crowd as other teams do. Teams are going to enjoy going there and seeing more of their own fans than the home team. It's not going to be a bad place to go, is it? And I think this year is just not going to be a good year for them. They just don't have enough depth. They don't have enough leadership. And that's going to be a problem.
You want to pick Paul's pocket for me?
Can I also mention as well, one of the biggest losses they've got is Scherf on the offensive line, who was a wonderful offensive lineman. And you've got Carson Wentz, who is apparently a pussy.
That loss is one of the reasons why Sam Howell will start more games than Carson Wentz this season.
I think Heineke will be ahead of Sam Howell. I don't think you'll see Sam Howell take the field. My crazy bet, some people might say it's not that crazy, but Antonio Gibson will get more rushing yards than Saquon.
No, I'm not going to.
Not total yards, rushing yards.
Oh, I'll take the bet. I don't think he will.
You don't think he will? Oh, Jim's in.
Yeah.
He made it Zeke, but no.
I can't trust Saquon stay on the field, so I think he will.
I'm taking a fly. I'm going to say Saquon's going to stay fit.
Okay, well, there you go. That was my researched rundown.
Over to you then.
We're on the
James.
NFC West, are we? Cool. All right, well, I'm not going to do this in order Gary did because I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to start with the Cardinals.
You saying I spoiled it?
I was just saying he kind of took away part of the segment of saying who's going to finish where. I'm going to start with the Cardinals. I think the biggest question in the Cardinals is around Kyler's ability to lead that franchise. I think...
Is it much of a question when you know the answer?
Well, no, but I think... I will say, what I have been quite... Have you seen in pre-season where he's been the play caller for the second half of a lot of the games? I think that's part of the whole thing of getting him to learn the playbook. And it's almost like a visual demonstration of that, where something like that would normally happen behind closed doors. I think the Cardinals are putting it very out there openly, saying, right, well, he needs to learn the playbook, and this is how we're going to get to do it, and this is how we're going to make it visible to our fans, but also visible to the rest of the team, that he knows the playbook.
And over the course of pre-season, that's 4 hours of independent study.
Exactly. I think one of the benefits they brought James Conner back. I thought he had a great year last year. The wide receiving core is weak when DeAndre Hopkins isn't there for the first 6 games. So, all right, they traded for Marquise Brown. I think that's a waste of a first-round pick. I don't think he's all that. And then AJ Green is the second one, who back in his day was a top 2 wide receiver. But now he's 33, 34. I don't think he's got all that.
About 800 yards last year.
I don't know, that's pretty decent, but he's a year older. And, Tom Brady had over 5,000 yards last year. So
I liked Zach Ertz on that team.
I do like Zach. And I said that was a shitty decision by the Cardinals at the time, and Griff called me out on it. He was absolutely right. It's worked out well for them. They've not done enough on the offensive line, though. It doesn't matter as much because Kyler Murray is a scrambler, but I still think I still think you can get to him if you've got the right defensive play scheme in place, and the 49ers have. Defense just looks old. They've got no one to rush the passer outside JJ Watt, and when was the last time JJ Watt was fit for 16, 17 games of the season?
Well, he's also old.
And he's also old as well. I've put him down as a key player. He absolutely needs to stay fit, because if he's not, then who's going to get to the opposition? I noted down a rookie to watch, Cameron Thomas. He's third round edge rusher, just because I think he'll get game time. So that's the Cardinals. Oh, and I don't like Cliff Kingsbury.
So we're not going for a third home Super Bowl win.
No, the run is going to end.
He's on the hot seat.
Yeah, I think he is.
And I think he'll be gone.
Yeah.
End of the season, though. He's not going to go in mid-season, is he?
I think he'll go end of the season.
I do think it depends how they start. Like, bear in mind that
Their starts have been good.
the starts have been good. If that suddenly goes and the Cardinals know what's coming down after week 10, I think there's a risk they could change it there and then, just trying to input some
As
wins.
concluding the Kyler Murray saga not relieved a bit of pressure
No.
and given them a bit of focus
No, I don't
on
think
how to move forward.
I think that's doubled down on Cliff Kingsbury, because suddenly they agreed to pay him. No doubt he's had a big influence on that decision. So if he is shit, if he's shit, then it's going to rest on Cliff Kingsbury's laurels.
Because the Cardinals, we can't forget, they were decent for
first 10
75% of the season. I know.
They lost 5 of the last 6
Yeah, and
for the second season.
I get it's not how you start, it's how you finish, but they were still a good team.
Yeah.
And we think they're just going to be.
I think they're going to be middle of the road. I think 9 and 8 would be a good season for them.
I mean, I don't want to take Jim's thunder here, but the only reason they're not going to finish bottom of this division is because
of the
Seahawks
It's
are
terrible.
Yeah.
But 9 and 8 in the NFC could be enough to get you a wild card spot.
It could well be. Right, moving on to the current Super Bowl champions, the LA Rams. I think they're in a great spot at repeating this season. They've kept all their important players. You're getting Cam Akers back for a full year of being a legit running game. I think their biggest weakness is going to be left tackle. They obviously lost Andrew Whitworth. Their current left tackle is Joe Noteboom. Joe Noteboom.
easy for you to say.
No, it's not.
I believe it's pronounced not a boom.
Assuming his name's a bust.
No to Baum.
Yeah. There's questions about Matt Stafford's fitness. I think that's all bullshit. But he's not a scrambling quarterback. So if he is getting a lot of pressure from the left side, that could be a massive issue. As always with the Rams, there isn't a lot of strength in depth, but that doesn't seem to matter because they never have a first round pick or a second round pick, but actually their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks are always decent players.
They just go and sign veterans when they need them.
Or they bring in a veteran when they need them.
Because they're easier to plug in.
Biggest, bear in mind, this was a brilliant defense last year. They've gone and added probably one of the best linebackers we've ever seen in the game in Bobby Wagner. It gets better. I absolutely think they're in as good a shout as anyone of retaining the Super Bowl. I really like their wide receiving core. Cooper Kupp is obviously amazing. Allen Robinson, I think, is an amazing addition. I think he is going to be a top 10 fantasy receiver this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bold.
No, I do. You look at it last year. Okay, Cooper Kupp was number one, way above. If you combine what Robert Woods and then Odell Beckham had, I think you've got a really good receiver there. And Allen Robinson is going to get those targets. And
Top 10s.
I think that's a.
Oh, Jim's gone big there.
That could be the sneaky bet.
Yeah, that might be.
I also do like Van Jefferson, and I do think Odell Beckham will be back there at some point. So that's it. That's it for the Rams, really.
Just too good. There's nothing.
You can't. I mean, the only weakness is, like I said, that left tackle, and the
Replacing Whitworth.
Whitworth and the apparent lack of depth. But like I say, every time they bring in a player, he seems to be really good.
Even if they are lacking depth, by week 6 they'll just go out and find someone and bring. I know
that's a really good point. The way the team is run, it's obviously to win now, but they make good decisions.
But win now every year is just winning, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Because that's what the Patriots did. The Patriots just stayed in
Always
win now. Yeah.
I think the Rams are there whilst they got Matt Stafford as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right, going to the completely other end of the spectrum, the Seattle Seahawks. I wrote my summary. It won't be as bad as some, but still going to be a tough year to be a Seahawks fan. I wrote positive.
I'm not a Seahawks fan.
We're going to enjoy this. Look, the 2 starting wide receivers are both brilliant. I'm surprised they're still both there. Positive.
There's only 17 games before you might have a new quarterback.
They pay a lot to their not their wide receivers, their safeties. They pay a lot to the wide receivers as well. They pay a lot to their safeties, who are both not very good at intercepting the ball.
Can we not say, though, that Geno Smith was only 0.3 quarterback points behind Russell Wilson last year? In a much smaller sample size, I'll grant you, but he wasn't
Russell
terrible.
Wilson was bad last year.
Yeah, Russell Wilson.
Wasn't good. Russell
Geno
Wilson
started 4 games. I think they went. I think it was 2-2. It might have been 1-3, but they were in every game, and he actually looked the best he's ever looked.
Russell Wilson was in I don't want to be here Russell Wilson mode last year.
That's
so you're
pretty
comparing
good shout,
you're comparing Geno Smith trying to get a job to Russell Wilson who doesn't want the job.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just saying. I think Russell was like QBR 100.
I know, but that's just one of those stats that you can prove anything with. Like
it's a fair point.
It's the best team Geno's ever had round him.
He showed that Tyler Lockett is a great receiver.
He is.
DK Metcalf went off a fucking cliff.
Because why didn't the Packers just go and fucking give them everything to go and get DK Metcalf? That would have been the shot, rather than getting Jordan Love and wasting the first round pick that nobody wants.
Well, I completely agree with that. I don't understand why Seattle have kept DK Metcalf. I think they should have traded him, got some trade picks, and then put all the cards on the table for next year. Like going into the draft, get some decent players, get a new wide receiver, get a new coach, get a new front office.
But the answer is because they think they can compete.
No, because how long's Tyler Lockett got left? He's not the youngest wide receiver.
Sorry, do they really think they can compete? I know he says that.
He's 29.
Does he really look at this roster and go, yeah, we can beat the Rams with this roster, because that's what you got to do. And that team,
and the Niners.
That team is not beating the Rams, the Niners, the Packers, the Bucks, the Saints, whoever else they play at the top of the NFC. I'm betting against Seattle this year. That's the end of them.
Kenneth Walker looks fun.
Yeah, I think like Rashard Penny ended the year actually in pretty decent form. Like he's got another year to prove it if he can stay fit. And this is an if for a lot of running backs we've talked about.
I thought John was just going to say the word we were all thinking. Adebayor.
He was having an Adebayor end of the season. The guy's pony.
Yeah.
That's unfair because ponies are pretty good at running. The guy's a slug.
Right.
Oh, God.
We'll move on to the 49ers. I wrote in my summary, this is the year of Trey. Manage expectations. 2022 is a year for the young QB to get some experience under his belt.
So what Jim means is by week 6 I'll be calling for Shanahan to be sacked.
Absolutely.
Griff, why are you shaking your head at me?
So, look, this is all about the quarterback, isn't it? Because the rest of the roster is really good. Like, the running backs, they're good. And they're going to be better with a Kyle Shanahan system. The wide receivers are decent. The tight end is good. Kyle Juszczyk is another top 100 player. And even there's question marks about the offensive line. I think it's probably the weakest part of the offense, but it's still okay, and it's anchored by the best defensive lineman in the game. The defense is going to be a top 5 defensive unit.
The game is Madden, but still.
He wouldn't be getting that rating if he wasn't decent. The defense is still brilliant from the defensive front through to the linebackers, and they've improved the defensive backs and bringing in Charvarius Ward. Look, if Trey Lance was 2-3 years further down the road and had some success under his belt, we'd be saying that the 49ers are a Super Bowl, one of the Super Bowl favourites. the biggest question mark is obviously Trey Lance. Like, is he going to ball out and be a quarterback worthy of 3 first-round picks, or is he going to be Daniel Jones?
It's not going to matter because when he gets injured, Jimmy G's going to play and you'll be in the playoffs anyway.
Why are you so intent on him getting injured?
I'm just utterly convinced he's going to want to break the play down and run, and I think he's not experienced enough at getting out of the way.
I don't know. Like
It was Lamar Jackson when he started.
He sat for a year.
Yeah.
He's had one. We don't talk much about preseason, but he did look good in preseason.
He's had some amazing throws
generally,
in preseason.
and I think the difference is people think he's a running quarterback.
He's not,
because
he's
he's athletic, but he can throw the ball. He's just a modern quarterback who is an athlete. So what we hope is that he's a Josh Allen. He can be a Josh Allen in 2 years' time. Josh Allen was so raw when he first came in.
He's terrible.
And this may well be what we see this year. But if the ceiling that you see in a few games is Josh Allen, then you just go, right, well, let's just build around this guy. And then
He has massive potential. And I have no problem with them deciding this is what we're doing. We're pinning it. I think you have to be prepared to sit through the ups and downs this season. I also think you have to be prepared for it could be an amazing season. And then when everyone's got him on film, next season might not be as good.
And I think the thing is as well, like, we can talk about Jimmy as much as you like, and he's been good for the Niners when he's been on the field. We know his issues with injuries, but he has been good for the Niners. But he's also never quite got over the line. With an extremely talented roster, he's had opportunities, championship game, Super Bowl, and you can argue it was play calling, Shanahan tightening up, whatever you want to say.
He couldn't make that.
But he did not. Yeah, there was.
You lost the Super Bowl because your cornerbacks were shit. I tire of hearing of the Jimmy G.
No, that is true, but
that's definitely an element. But there is.
He still had he still missed an opportunity to win the Super Bowl.
He should never have been in that position. He needed him to make.
But he still missed an opportunity. Yeah. He didn't lose the Super Bowl, but he missed an opportunity to win it.
Yeah.
He couldn't go out there and win the Super Bowl, and that's what we might need.
But are you guaranteeing that Trey Lance would have made that throw?
No.
Right. So all I'm saying is, I don't think there's been enough defence of Jimmy G.
Hang on, I've defended him quite a lot through the last year, where he wins football games.
You just said he's the reason you didn't win the Super Bowl.
No,
which is wrong.
We said he's the reason we didn't win it. Not the reason we lost it.
No, you said he's the reason you didn't win it. I disagree. He's not the reason you didn't win it.
I said he missed an opportunity to win the Super Bowl.
He missed Emmanuel Sanders by 5-6 yards.
10 yards. Yeah.
Right? And kind there. Yes, the cornerbacks had a massive role to play in that loss, but he also didn't go out and win it, which is what a star quarterback does do. Now, we're not saying Trey Lance can do that. We don't know. He's a rookie quarterback. There's lots of known unknowns about him. So
fucking hell. Here
we go again. But at some point you've got to give him a go, and why not now? Anyway, rookie to watch, Tyrion Davis-Price, running back from LSU, looks really good. Division's going to finish Rams, Niners, Cardinals, Seahawks.
If the Niners still take second, I'll be happy with that.
Well, I think they'll get in the playoffs as well.
I think the Cardinals, you might see the Cardinals a bit better than people giving them credit for. We'll see.
Yeah. I had a crazy bet earlier, but I can't remember what it was. I wrote down James Conner will score more rushing TDs than all of Seahawks combined.
Ooh. Just rushing touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns, yeah.
Oh. I don't see that as a silly bet. I see that as a very thought out bet.
Yeah, I know.
I'll take that.
You did have a better
I'll
one.
take that because I'm going to take Kenneth Walker in fantasy.
And Paul will take it as well.
Someone's got to replace Chris Carson.
I'm not taking that.
Cool.
You had a better one when you were talking earlier. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember what it was. I got to go back and listen.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think the 49ers are really interesting this year because
I like Kinlaw as well.
Yeah, he looks fit.
He looks like a beast.
Yeah. It's the usual. They've got a strong defensive front and
the
Commanders that try to do, but
I'm not even that negative right now, Jim.
I know. I'm a bit scared about that actually.
We'll see Ambry Thomas watching a football flowing over his head again, and then we'll see.
Right. Anyone got anything else? If not, that'll be a wrap. We'll be back next week where we'll look at the first week's fixtures, what to expect. Paul will make some more outlandish bets, and we'll have no more mentions of disgraced Cleveland quarterbacks. Good night.
No.